Oh, I had one.
Good evening, welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board Subcommittee. This is the Capital Improvement Committee. We are beginning our second Thursday of our meetings. And normally we start with our introductions, and we'll start with Joanne, please.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Mark Lemay, Selectman's Rep.
Tim Redmond, Planning Board.
Jack Carbonell, School Board Rep.
Jim Raymond.
Olivia Welch-Earl, Budget Committee Rep.
Jim is a Community at Large member. Thank you, Jim. And who's not here tonight, Joanne?
Brad Parkhurst.
Brad Parker's from Community
He's an at-large member
at
as
Large
well.
member. Okay. All right. We have minutes from our past meeting on May the 29th in our hands tonight.
I move we approve and don't require Tim to read them.
Motion's made to approve as presented.
Second.
Waive the reading thereof.
And waive the reading thereof. So is there any discussion on a motion to approve these as presented and waiving the reading? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Any other business, Joanne, to conduct before we ask our school district to begin their presentation?
No, we don't have anything.
Thank you, Joanne. Please, come on up and identify yourself for the record, sir.
Thank you. I'm Randy Loring. I am the Facilities Director for SAU 19. And sitting here with you all tonight, thank you for letting me be here to talk about our CIP program for next year.
Randy, generally, we like to stick to the appropriation, the request for this year. If there's anything in the out years that you would like to touch on, we're happy to hear about them, but we do not want to have in-depth presentation because things tend to get moved around in the matrix.
Yes.
And we wouldn't want to spend a lot of time talking about something that might get moved around. So you can begin when you're ready.
And I will say, Tim, looking at this really on what we have here, basically I am the only one here tonight for the fact that what is going to be happening next year is basically falling within the facilities. It's not the IT program. We
Okay.
did pull that out of here for a separate, information, as you know. I will just touch basically on the things that I have here that will be happening next year.
Okay.
Like, for example, you will see here at Bartlett, it says to move the vestibule wall and door. That is for a security purpose. That right now in that building, when you walk in or get buzzed into the building, you're right in the front where the receptionists sit. The office door is there. If something should happen and the building should need to go into a lockdown, the folks in the office are locked in the office. They have nowhere to go. So we're taking that big glass door system that you see there and we're removing that and we're putting in a wall right in front of the office door with doors and stuff, security, so that way in a lockdown, those outside that vestibule can go into a lockdown and give the people that are in that office a means to get out and into the building to shelter elsewhere other than in that particular spot. So that's what that is. And we believe right now that coming up, it's here, because we're hoping to get a grant on this. In August, they are going to be opening up it's a $10 million grant with the state that we're hoping we're putting this into to get funding for this, and we think we're pretty sure that we'll get the funding for this project.
You support your effort.
And as we move through, I said Maple, right now we have no big projects that are happening at Maple that would make it onto this for you all. Glen Lake, similarly to Bartlett, when you get into the building at Glen Lake, you get buzzed into the building, you go through a small little vestibule then. When you enter into the school, you're in the school. And we're looking to put a wall up at the end of the hallway just outside of the office. Kind of the same scenario as over at Bartlett, to have doors that can get access from the office to buzz people in and out. To be able to secure the building in the event of a lockdown is what this is about. And putting in a pass-through window similarly that you see at a bank, a slide-through underneath, so there's no taking out those sliding windows that you see, like for example at Bartlett, taking them out, putting in a nice pass-through to make it more of a secure vestibule with fob locking doors on each of the office doors so they are locked as well. So we're looking forward to that as well, hopefully getting that done next summer. and hopefully getting that approval with the submission as we're right now getting the final quotes for this project, so we can get them into when the grant opens in August to have all the paperwork ready to file.
So I'm sorry, would that be under the same grant?
Yes,
That's okay.
same grant. And in the CRF, as you see, $200,000 for a fire panel at Mountain View. Mountain View is a non-addressable panel. So if an alarm should go off, it just calls out a zone in the building, and you have to figure out where is zone 9. It doesn't tell you exactly where in the building that it
Do a
is.
lot of looking up.
Yeah, so you do a lot of looking for an indicator. Usually they're flashing.
So this will
rapidly.
address that problem?
Yes, it will. It will call out second floor by 208. It will actually call out a device.
And this is presently in a capital reserve fund?
It is. Well, that's where they're hoping to pay. It's in the capital reserve fund is where they're slating to pay for this. It's
Right.
it's in that project
But there is
line.
funding in there for
Yes.
this project? Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions so far? We generally, if someone has a question, just do like you did, pop right up and ask it. Don't look to me for a hand up, just,
I do have you don't want to go to outline their years, I know, but I'm noticing a lot of the repairs on roofs in bad condition, and roofs we don't want to leak, so is there a reason that's...
which years, Jim?
Well, it's got to 2028, 29.
But if you look at it, most of them are on a bond municipal lease request payment.
Okay.
They're not looking for tax dollars for this stuff.
No, that's right, but the roof repairs have been on the agenda for quite a while. I'm
Okay.
just curious why they're out 2 more years.
Again, I'm not the finance office, okay, I'm the facilities guy. And what I will say that there was a lot of these things that with a lot of these projects that are out there, and there are so many of them, to try and go after them one at a time would be a tough thing to do. So we are maintaining them to keep our buildings sealed, but we're also looking to group them into one project to get a better pricing across the district versus doing one here and one here,
Okay.
doing them as a group.
Well, Randy, I would request that if you could make a note of Jim's question
Mhm.
and pass it on to the finance arm of your
Most certainly
school
will.
district, and maybe then you could either send a response to Joanne, which she could enter into the record to answer Jim's question, and if he wants to know why the roof repairs are out so far.
Okay, will do.
Because how long have they been in here, Jim? A couple of years
It
prior?
seems like we've seen them
They were
quite
in
a
a couple
bit.
of years.
We-
We actually see roof repairs on the buildings all the time, it seems like.
Well,
Yeah.
We are
It's a
doing
reoccurring,
repairs.
it's a reoccurring
It is.
investment.
It is.
And I think they were put out where it was in between, if we possibly did go after a new school at that time, some of them were on the schools, the elementary schools, that would then not need it if we ever built.
okay.
Not that it would ever happen
Okay.
that fast, but you know,
Okay.
that sort of thing, you might look to repair it instead of replace it if you knew the school was just
Yeah,
another.
my point, I don't believe, was they shouldn't be shy for asking it if they need it. I think it's just because you
Correct.
knock down
Yeah.
the school.
Because I have it as a priority 3 right now,
Yeah,
Jim.
yeah, which is odd for a roof, but, okay, that's fine.
I was
Okay.
under the impression that some of the roof repairs were happening though,
Oh, yeah.
I
we-
thought, right?
Last year we did.
We, for example, last year at Mountain View
Right,
Middle School,
there
we
was all
replaced
the
a section because it
leaking.
needed to be done, it couldn't be
Right,
put off.
that it was like a per section.
Yes.
Kind of
Okay.
situation
It's just an
instead of a
evaluation.
total replacement.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the answer, I just...
Any other questions on the addressable fire panel before we let Randy keep going? Well, if you think of one, come back to it. Go ahead, Randy.
Then we're looking at, also at Mountain View Middle School, line 37, which is to fix a drainage issue on the 5th grade wing, which is the back of the building where the basketball court is, that little valley that leads down to the building. There's a lot of water runs into there. When we did that roof, we also put a lot of gutters around the building to direct the water because we were having issue with water spilling out and creating slippery conditions, but also containing that water, funneled it to the area in that 5th grade wing where it's running down into that French drain that we put in several years ago, that at the time it was working as properly with the water flow that was running into it. Well, now we've increased that water flow into that drainage. We need to go back and put bigger pipe into that, and at the same time, where we did the leaders for the gutters that we put on, we're going to run them down the building and tie them into the French drain to minimize, to get the water away from the building, runs down into a storm drain to take the water away from the building.
Okay. Okay, ready to move on? So we're on page 3 of 4 now, right?
And I'm looking at this, just making sure that I am not missing anything.
I've been watching with you, and you're hitting them as we go.
Right now, I'm showing the Goffstown High School, and we're going past at the Goffstown High School, if we look down at lines 58 and 59, we're looking at the carpeting in the main office and the carpeting in the info
You
center.
missed the generator up for line 47.
I'm sorry, sir. We have the generator there right now. That generator was put in under 2 grants, a SAFE grant and a federal grant. We've already been refused on the SAFE grant funding for this project. But I just recently, last week, had a meeting with the folks with the fire department, and FEMA came out to the site. They wanted to see where the generator was going. So we walked through the building to show them the location of where the generator would be, where the penetrations would be into the building, and why it was needed. So right now, with the feel that I have gotten from them, of course, they're committing to nothing, but says it looks like we're on a path to hopefully, knock on wood, to get an approval for this project.
So
We
the
don't know
generator-
yet. It's still in the air. We don't know if we're going to get
So
the
this
funding.
generator has not been installed?
It has not been installed.
And haven't we been talking about this for several years?
4 years,
I
yes,
thought so.
sir. And because right now, the particular grant that is out there is a 75-25 split. That's why we're going after it, trying to stay very active in getting this funding for this.
So, Randy, I would suggest, from the planning side of things, that Jim, how do we do this where we could include the 25% in the matrix to forward if they get the 70, rather than lose the whole 500 at budget deliberations by the budget committee and the select board?
Well, we have to do gross appropriation, so
Oh, we can't
we can't just,
separate it somehow?
I think we do that in the notes, but typically we put in the gross price and then noted, not just the pocket price. But then we've put at the end, we've done adjusting to show.
Do we have a revenues column on this ever, anywhere?
Is the grant 75, 25?
So we've netted out at the bottom to
And-
show the actual.
And Jack, if I'm not mistaken, I know this is conversations that the business administrator has had with the board about the funding, the 25% that would be needed for this.
Okay.
And I believe there's been conversations with you all about how that would be captured on our side, to
On our
making
side.
sure that we had the appropriations for this. If it went through
Right.
and it was approved, that we already had a matrix in place for that to happen.
Yeah,
So-
to have it set aside so that we can,
Yeah.
we
If-
have to have those matching funds available
sorry,
when
Jack.
the grant comes through, sorry.
If we jump ahead to page 404, line 293, that is the total school projects revenues column. So what I'd like to see is how you get to 850,000 as a minus, as a revenue, in the notes. For instance, if you're figuring a 75-25 on the generator, could you show in the notes on the memo side where the revenue might be, the 25% revenue would be, so that when we do look at revenues, we know how to add them up and figure out how we got to the 850.
Yeah, so just looking at the end.
I will pass that.
So for
I
them,
can add
for
that
the
on.
school district is to fix this draft proposal so that the 850,000 in revenues that's shown on line 293 is
Yes.
addressed in each memo where how we get to the 850.
Yeah,
And that would help
one
us
line over.
understand where the revenues are.
Yeah.
Who is the grant through? I know the SAFE grant refused it, but who?
We're with FEMA right now.
FEMA, okay.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
And the way things are going in Washington, I would hope for the best for you,
Yeah.
but plan for the worst.
That's what
We as
happened with
well.
the safe, that's what
We are
happened
as
with the
well.
safe grant. yeah.
Okay. So I think we burned up the generator column unless somebody else has something else. Now you can begin to move on to your 58, please. Randy. Line 58,
It
project
was-
58.
Yeah, is we're talking about replacing the carpeting in the main office and in the media center with, it's LVT, it's a laminate tile versus taking the carpet out and putting in a laminate tile to better care for it. It's easy care, so it's less care than trying to deal with the carpet that's in those spaces. It's a lot of carpet, a lot of spills at times. We don't always get 100% out, so we're always lingering or trying to fight issues or other staining that comes along with it. And this will take care of it, and that carpet has been in there in both of these locations for, I want to say they were in there since 2004, I believe is when they were installed. So we're looking to get them out to a better appear, better overall atmosphere of the space. And it's needed, more so than anything, it's needed.
So before you move on, Randy, your project number 60, you have replaced the furniture in the info center, but nowhere in the matrix is a dollar amount. Line 60, or project 60, line
Yep.
269. So that should be filled in with a number somewhere.
It should be, Tim, I'm sorry, I didn't notice it, but I know it was in there, and I know that they had an allocation amount of where that was coming
So
from.
maybe that could show up
I will put that with the notes to
on
show
amended,
that.
on another amended proposal.
Can I ask a question?
Please, Joanne.
In the column near those, for those items for the carpeting, it says that the money is coming from tax appropriation and the capital reserve fund. Have those, for the capital reserve fund, have those items been included under the revenue?
Yes.
Already?
I believe they have,
Okay,
yes.
they
Yep.
are here, okay, thank you.
Well, just to touch on that point right now, Randy,
Yes.
I'm looking at your other two vestibule projects
Yes.
at the Bartlett and at the other one.
Glen Lake.
They both say tax appropriation / bond funding source, and then the school proposed funding source is a grant. So, Jim, can we have both as a funding source?
It's not a combination.
Well, they're diametrically opposed.
Yeah.
So I just wondered, from a planning perspective, should we allow that to be three sources of funding for the vestibule on project number 2? Because it says tax appropriation / bond,
Right.
and then we see
Where-
grant next to it, so,
On the first page?
yeah. Project number 2.
Well, it could be a combination, some from tax, some from bond, or is it one is a fallback as tax appropriation if you don't get the bond? Whatever.
Tax appropriation is the fallback for all the projects that we
It
look
is,
at.
yeah,
And
well,
then-
no, but the point is that the project is not, if it's not conditioned on getting the bond or the grant, it'd be a tax appropriation if it's conditioned on getting the grant.
I take that back. The generator for $500,000 is not tax appropriation. That is strictly a grant
So-
or contingency.
So they're not gonna do it if they don't get the grants, yeah.
All right, folks, I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah.
Joanne brought that to mind, and I wanted...
So is there clarification there, Tim, that you need on what we're
Well, I
talking about
think,
with
I think
with
if,
the walls?
Jim has clarified it. If you
Okay.
don't get a bond, if you don't get a grant, you're gonna go back and look for a bond. If you don't get a bond, well, if you get a bond, you're gonna have to pay for it with taxes anyway, so.
That's right.
So it's really, it's an either-or funding
I
source.
think that's what it is, because it's we consider it a security, you know.
No, I have no problems
Yeah,
with it.
yeah.
I
No,
just wanna
yeah, yeah.
identify
Yeah,
the
no,
funding
no.
sources.
Yeah.
But
But
we
that's
have
what
to
I'm
make-
thinking with the,
It does
then
make,
you
have
can
an
send me an
impact
email
with
on that,
bond
line
attack in the
60.
impact in
I
the
can
year.
insert
in
it.
the,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Rather than spreading it out.
right.
Okay, everybody good on my question that I just stirred the hornet's nest around? Okay, we're gonna move on to page 4, I guess, at this point.
So right, and Tim, for next year, I have I'm not showing anything that would be shown. Part of, the only thing that in 27, 28 is, again, is part of that $10 million SAFE grant that we're looking at now, is finishing the project that we started last year, is the single key coring project, in which would be finished off with the high school and the middle school.
You do have one request, Project 72, Randy, that is the capital reserve fund deposit, a fund balance warrant for $300,000.
Yes.
So what is fund balance? Is that the town's fund balance or the school's fund balance?
I would look to Jack for that clarification, to be honest with you.
Because it's the school fund balance.
School's fund balance?
School can carry, I
We
think
can
it's a
carry
certain,
like up
Yeah,
to
I know we did it by 10 vote.
5%. We were carrying,
10%, right?
no, 5 for us.
10%.
So
it's
we,
a
I
lower
think
amount.
our cap is 17 something, and we have it listed proposed at, 1.7. We have it proposed at 1.3 right now, but we're doing good on our expenditures and the interest that we're making on our money. So we might be able to
So we would propose to
skirt that
take,
up a little bit more.
we would take $300,000 out of the capital, the
Yeah.
fund balance that the school holds, and move it into a capital reserve fund? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I guess
There's one
so,
already
yeah.
created.
There is
There's
one
already one
created.
created,
Okay.
yes. And that's where
We
we're
don't have to
holding the
create it.
turf, right, we only have one. And we hold all our things in there instead of having
Okay.
several. And that's where like we're trying to put 50 in every year for the turf replacement at
Yep.
the end of the turf life and stuff like that. And that's like what the cistern project came out of. And so that's what we're looking to put back in at the end of the year. But what we were getting was that doesn't get determined until we come back after the summer when they run the final numbers for our actual revenues versus expenditures. And then we put that in place for the budget. For what
How
we're
many,
gonna keep
how many
as a
years out
reserve
was the
fund.
turf replacement, Jack? I don't remember.
I want to say it's 10 years,
10 years.
and they estimated the cost, so if we put in the 50, it's 10 to 15, depending on how the use goes. So
Is
if
that
we put
natural
in
turf or artificial turf?
the artificial turf, the new field, so if we put in 50 every year, and they're
have
estimating
enough.
800 to $1 million, depending on where it goes,
Yep.
you'll at least have
I knew it was a
3/4
bit
or
on the
more of
lower
it, so that you don't, so that you're only asking for 25% or less instead of.
Now, I'm not going to ask you this question, Randy, because you're going to say you don't have the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
In 28, 29, that long column of big numbers, all the way down to the very end of our page 4, I assume that the appropriation for the project, that those are placeholder numbers at this
Correct.
time? They're
That
not
is
actual,
They're not actual numbers, they're
actual
placeholders.
estimates?
Correct.
Okay.
and
You
that's-
do have the answer then?
Yeah, so that is like where we had the big number for the
That's fine.
potential school.
This
in
is why we
in
don't,
those years. Yeah, right.
we don't
yeah.
generally talk about placeholders at this time. It's just to make sure it's in the matrix.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Yep.
we certainly, as a CIP committee, if it was not a bond or something that was approved by the voters, we certainly wouldn't have a 900,000 one year or 400,000 next year, and then 10,772. We would never approve that at CIP.
But the
Yeah, it's a,
project revenues, it looks like it's the CRF. So when, I thought we were taking another strike down at the bottom for bond to take that out so we can look at the actual tax appropriation net in that year to help us as we try to balance the tax rate, and that's missing here.
Right.
I think we did that last 2 years. It's the town one looked like. Did they do it, Joanne?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No. So maybe you can repeat what I just said, 'cause I don't know what I said.
He was asking that.
blah, 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 blah.
You wanted to
That
say,
if
I
if
believe
it
it
was
was-
in there.
did you say, Jim, it was-
what would
I
be-
think I heard that.
You wanted the
If-
bond
if the
taken
goal-
out?
The goal, one of the goals of this process is to even out tax impact.
Yeah.
Right.
In order to do that, you can't have the bond appropriation amount in the bottom line as the total, because we don't know what the actual appropriation, tax impact in that year is. So I think last year, we had an additional adjustment for the bonded event. So the bottom line is what we have to expect for taxation, appropriation.
For the bond payment
So,
in
so
that
then,
year.
because
Right.
the goal is to even
So
that
you're-
as much as possible.
So
And
you're
this
saying that
was
if it's a $10 million bond and it's a $250,000 a year payment for the bond, that's the number we would expect to see across the bottom line for
Correct,
250?
yeah, because then we can look at
Because that's what
how
impacts
How it
taxes.
impacts
Yeah.
taxes.
This is not very helpful.
Randy, I also quoted you the wrong number. I looked at the wrong line when I said
Yeah.
850,000, it's actually 300,000. I was looking at the wrong line, I was looking at the line next to it. So it's, how do you get to 300,000 in offsetting revenues? And if it's strictly the fund balance, then the capital reserve fund, then we don't need to know.
Yeah, it looks like it is, because that's the number that gets carried down each year.
Right. So we don't have to ask that question.
It seems to me, though, Randy, that Tim doesn't want to talk about future years, 2029 to 30, you've got a negative number. Put a few things into that category so you don't end up with a negative number.
Well, actually, Randy, we'd like to see the matrix infilled with numbers. This doesn't really suit our planning committee's prerogatives here.
I would say, I can know because of the matrix that we look at, a lot of it is infill, but I think to a degree on some of this, some of these numbers came out, I think, based on the conversation that we had last year about what should or should not be in
So you pull
the
out
matrix. So
some
we
things.
pulled stuff out.
We'll make up some stuff then.
Well,
To be honest with you, we don't have to make much of it.
Well, that's good news from the school district, we appreciate that. But the point is that leaving all those columns empty is doing you a disservice, and it's not what this board needs to see to plan for the future, this group.
I will deliver this message back first thing tomorrow when I get it.
I'm lost here. I understand now that that's coming from the capital reserve fund, but what columns are you looking for him to fill in?
I don't want him to fill in anything now, because the 300,000 in revenue is coming from the capital reserve fund.
450 is coming from the capital
Very
reserve.
much here.
300, it says at the bottom.
But in 2029 to 30, you look at the bottom,
Right,
total school projects after revenues is a negative number.
right.
Because there's nothing in the column.
Yeah, I know, so that's,
It's a negative number because they're asking for 450,000 in their CRF fund, and they're gonna put 450,000 in the revenues. That turns it into a zero.
So how does a bond come into place here?
They have to go get one from the taxpayers at town meeting.
but that's an additional line. Go back and look at what we've done, I think, in last year.
Okay, I'll check
We
it.
took out the bond amounts, so you have to add some more stripes at the bottom. Because,
that's because if we got the $11 million appropriation the year before, the next year, we're getting nothing.
yeah. But the actual payments are spread out over.
Right, yeah.
So you gotta,
And,
and you gotta,
I have.
Honestly,
Send it to Scott. You'll get it.
Okay.
you gotta train the voters every year to vote for something
Thank
for the
you.
school.
honestly speaking, if there's gonna be a new school bond, which is gonna be the order of what, 80 million? Ballpark in it?
Yeah, right, that's, I
Plus,
think that was the
plus
place.
whatever the
Right.
total amount is for this maintenance bond, which came out to how much total? For this maintenance project bond? It's,
So, yeah, it's kind of-
where is the bottom line? 10 million.
10.
So now you're up to, well, 10.7, so now you're up to 480 plus another 11, so you're like $91 million, and that's a big pill. Even if it is spread out over 20 or 30 years. So that's why we just kind of bouncing this around right now.
The political concern is you never get your major project approved in the first year anyway.
Well, there
Try
is
and
some-
try again.
Yeah, there is some
I'm just concerned if you.
thought to that, so they're
If you
picking,
refer your maintenance items.
they're picking the way out. We're in a bond to see what happens with, the 250 house lots that are approved right now in the town, and how that affects the school, and how that sways, right? There's different schools of thought, like the need is for an elementary school, right? So do you
Well,
build
that's
it?
one of the places you have increased enrollments, right?
Yes, that's where our numbers are stressed, because the size of the classrooms at Bartlett and the amount of students that haven't been going down at Maple Ave, and we fear that could change as these developments go through. So then we'd be pressed for space, so we would need an elementary school. But we have the land at the, there's two schools of thought even on the board, but they're basically being, we have land at the high school. Do you build a middle school, because then your fields in your accessibility and having the middle school age kids and the high school age kids is better, not commingled in the same building, but on the same grounds, campus, and then make Mountain View an elementary school. But the committee that steered for what we would need as a school said we need an elementary school, so some members feel that that's what we should be asking to build. But it really, I think my opinion, just as my opinion, being on here in the school board meetings, is it really matters what happens, you know, who do we get enrolled, how do you know? Do those 200 houses bring a bunch of middle schoolers? Are they young kids, are they, you know?
Yeah.
They're a lot older now than they were when we were middle schoolers.
If you could ever, if anyone could figure out how to know that, it'd be a lot easier.
Middle schoolers are not the same middle schoolers that we were in the 60s.
I think they should move the fourth graders up to
Well,
middle
this
school.
is a discussion
So
for
that-
another ending discussion.
Exactly.
Point of order, not our jurisdiction.
You're out of order, Madam Planner. Okay, any
Just
questions
my
for
opinion.
Randy regarding this? Randy, do you have some questions we'd like to get answered? Maybe you can pass it on to finance?
I most certainly will. I took the notes down as we went through them, and I gave you my
And
business
if-
card. You'll reach out to Scott.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to Scott, and I'll see him probably next week. I don't anticipate him being in tomorrow after being out all week. But I
And-
will talk with Doug.
By our schedule, Randy, we would ask probably for some school board answers by the August 21st meeting, which is our callbacks and deliberative session.
Will do.
And so, yeah, and I'll make sure I get, or Scott will.
Find out about that
Scott will
computer
probably put in, it's all on a matrix that I have, and it is obviously,
And if they
still
would,
pretty much the way it is. It's all, but it was a scrolling replacement, and the life expectancy is short on a lot of it. Most of it is maxed out at the 5 to 7 year range. But we did receive on the school board a matrix of it, which already has gotten, yeah.
and we could
Needs some
also,
work.
we could also see someone from the school board the same night as Public Works, which is July 31st, because Public Works is a single entity that night. And then the following, the 7th, we have the Library and the Sewer Commission, which is generally next to nothing because the Sewer Commission's enterprise fund.
August 7th?
So either the 31st or the 7th are both meetings that they could appear if they wanted to appear in person prior to our callbacks, because that gives us one more chance to ask questions, basically.
And that should be,
And we'd appreciate answers before that, if we can get them.
sorry, yeah, and I should be able to get a copy of that IT matrix.
That'd be great.
And we could all share that and then help us if we had questions on that. Who could be here to answer our questions?
Well, Randy did a good job filling in as the
Right, I'm not-
facility.
Yeah,
manager.
finance office for a
But he's
reason.
not going to the IT stuff.
I don't blame you.
Next week's gonna be a longer meeting.
We just look forward to these short meetings and we'll worry about.
No, I'm not complaining, I'm just noting it's gonna be interesting. I still want the usual office and the police and fire to give us rides and
Well, everybody, I think, is going to pretty much make the same argument they made last year because most of those departments got their stuff cut.
Yep.
So I think we're going to be
Yeah, I
hearing,
would say you can hear.
deja vu all over again.
Yeah, like I said,
Joanne, we need to, next year,
the truck's not.
we need to
anymore.
tighten this up a little more. Our last meeting, committee organization and admin, we could have had another presenter. We could shorten this by one whole meeting if we tighten them up a little more.
Yeah, we had it shorter, but then there needed to be, someone needed to switch around.
Well, if they're not ready, that's not an excuse. I'll tell you right now.
So
I don't-
that's why it
Well,
extended
next
further.
time, say no if they're not ready. That's their problem. They've got a whole year to get ready for CIP. So, between the library and the sewer commission, we could tack the sewer commission onto the public works, and we could move the library up to the admin meeting on the first one, and we could wipe out a whole Thursday here for all of us to stay home
Right.
for.
That
I'm
would
all
be
about
nice.
staying home.
But you have to
Maybe
ride
there's
your
air
motorcycle.
conditioning here.
Yeah, you got to, yeah, no air conditioning. If the air conditioner was what I was looking
I've got
for,
air
now I'm,
conditioning, everything.
I
I'll
might
sit
still,
here.
I might still go
Want
for
to
a
stay?
swim.
We'll just leave you
Even
here.
though the water was,
Randy, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Andy.
Motion's been made. Anybody have any other business? Joanne? Any other business?
thanks, Randy.
Maybe we should put in stipends for ourselves. No, I just,
Wait, that's a joke only for after GTV's dismissed.
no, I say don't because I just don't worry about stuff like that. All right, Jim's made a motion to adjourn. It's seconded. Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Thank you. GTV, we are adjourned.